Where you going, General?
Berlin! I'm gonna personally shoot that paper-hanging son of a bitch!
Few generals in history were as bold and controversial as George S. Patton. In 1970, Hollywood brought him to life in a film full of epic battles and shocking moments. But behind the scenes, this movie hides secrets even fans don't know. Here are 20 mind-blowing facts about Patton that most people have never heard. The opening speech was based on a real address.
The enemy, we're going to hold on to him by the nose, and we're going to kick him in the ass. We're going to kick the hell out of him all the time, and we're going to go through him like crap through a goose.
The opening scene of Patton, featuring George C. Scott delivering a rousing speech in front of a massive American flag, is one of the most iconic moments in film history. What many people don't realize is that this speech was based on an actual address Patton gave to the Third Army during World War II. It perfectly captures his charisma, intensity, and ability to inspire troops, reflecting the larger-than-life persona he was known for in real life. But here's the thing you didn't expect: the original speech was far more vulgar and confrontational than what appeared in the film. So instead of adding the dramatic Hollywood flavor, the filmmakers actually had to tone down the language to meet Hollywood standards. Yet they retained the energy, confidence, and authority that made Patton such a magnetic figure. George C. Scott meticulously studied Patton's delivery, gestures, and pacing to bring authenticity to the scene, making it feel both historically accurate and dramatically powerful. Some battle scenes used real war footage. Many of the epic battle scenes in Patton weren't entirely staged on a set. They include actual World War II combat footage filmed by US Army cameramen. This decision added an incredible level of authenticity to the film, blending real historical moments with the movie's recreated events. Director Franklin J. Schaffner and cinematographer Fred Konekamp carefully integrated these clips to make them match the style and pacing of the staged scenes. The result is a seamless mix that makes the audience feel like they're witnessing real wartime action rather than just a recreation. This blending of real footage with cinematic storytelling was unusual for its time and contributed significantly to the film's reputation for realism. George C. Scott wasn't the first choice to play Patton.
Tomo, you magnificent bastard, I read your book!
George C. Scott's legendary portrayal of General Patton is now iconic, but he wasn't the first actor considered for the role. Hollywood initially approached stars like Burt Lancaster, Robert Mitchum, and even John Wayne, but all of them turned it down. Some thought the role was too complex, while others worried about portraying such a controversial figure. Scott was eventually cast, and his commitment to authenticity transformed the character into something unforgettable. He studied Patton's speeches, mannerisms, and even his distinctive walk to fully embody the general. His dedication paid off. Scott won the Academy Award for Best Actor, though he famously refused to accept it, citing his disdain for the competitive nature of acting awards. The slapping incident was based on a true event.
Have a yellow bastard sitting here crying in front of these brave men who've been wounded in battle. Shut up!
One of the most shocking and controversial scenes in Patton shows the general slapping a soldier who he believes is shirking his duty. While it shocked audiences at the time, the scene was based on real events during the Sicilian campaign, where Patton actually slapped two soldiers suffering from battle fatigue. The incident caused an uproar in the military, and Patton faced official reprimands, though his career continued. In the film, the scene was carefully staged to capture the tension and complexity of Patton's character, his strict discipline, his volatile temper, and his obsession with military efficiency. George C. Scott's portrayal of this moment is raw and unflinching, giving viewers a glimpse into the general's unpredictable personality and the controversies that followed him throughout his career. Patton believed he was reincarnated. General George S. Patton wasn't just a military genius, he also held a deeply personal and unusual belief in reincarnation. Patton often claimed that he had fought in battles throughout history, from the fields of ancient Greece and Rome to the campaigns of Napoleon. He saw himself as a warrior whose spirit had been reborn across the centuries, gaining experience and insight from each life. He even wrote a poem titled "Through a Glass Darkly," where he described these past life experiences and his connection to ancient warriors. The film incorporates this belief subtly but powerfully. Composer Jerry Goldsmith used Echoplex sound technology to create echoing trumpet calls, giving the impression of voices from past battlefields resonating in the present. This musical motif reinforced Patton's connection to a long line of warriors and added a surreal, almost spiritual layer to the film. The German tanks were actually Patton tanks. In a surprising twist of irony, the tanks used to portray German armor in Patton weren't German at all. They were M48 Patton tanks borrowed from the Spanish army. Filmmakers had to get creative because authentic German tanks from World War II were nearly impossible to obtain. The result is a fascinating historical quirk. On screen, General Patton's forces appear to battle enemy tanks that bear his own name. Despite this, the production team skillfully modified the tanks to look convincingly German, ensuring that audiences wouldn't notice the substitution. This clever workaround is just one example of how the filmmakers blended practicality with cinematic realism, adding an unexpected layer of irony to the film's production history. Patton's family opposed the film. When the idea of making a film about General Patton first surfaced in the early 1950s, his family was strongly against it. Patton's widow, Beatrice, refused to entertain the idea, believing it was too soon after his death in 1945 and that Hollywood might misrepresent the general's character. After her passing in 1953, the project gained momentum, but even then, Patton's children, George Patton IV and Ruth Patton, actively campaigned against it. They were concerned about how their father's personality, controversial actions, and complex public image might be portrayed on screen. Despite the family's objections, producer Frank McCarthy and director Franklin J. Schaffner moved forward with the project, carefully researching Patton's life through biographies, memoirs, and military records. The filmmakers worked to strike a balance between dramatic storytelling and historical accuracy, portraying Patton as both a brilliant strategist and a flawed human character. Ultimately, the film's release sparked debate over its portrayal, but it also cemented Patton's legendary status in both military history and cinematic history. Patton's senior military advisor actually disliked him. To ensure historical accuracy, the filmmakers brought in General Omar Bradley as the movie's senior military advisor. Bradley had served alongside Patton during World War II and was intimately familiar with both his genius and his flaws. However, despite his role in advising the production, Bradley personally disliked Patton and often criticized his aggressive and unpredictable behavior. Bradley's involvement added a unique layer of authenticity to the film. He ensured that military procedures, battlefield strategies, and troop movements were depicted realistically, but he didn't shy away from acknowledging Patton's controversial nature. This tension between admiration for Patton's brilliance and criticism of his temperament is reflected in the film itself, giving audiences a nuanced portrait of the general rather than a purely heroic depiction. George C. Scott struggled with alcohol addiction during filming. During the production of Patton, George C. Scott faced personal challenges with alcoholism, which occasionally complicated filming. Rather than confronting him directly, director Franklin J. Schaffner tactfully adjusted the shooting schedule, giving Scott time to recover and ensuring that critical scenes were captured during his peak performance. Interestingly, Scott's personal struggles added depth and intensity to his portrayal of Patton. The general on screen is powerful, commanding, and confident, yet also burdened by loneliness and inner turmoil, a reflection in part of the actor's own life during filming. This demonstrates how personal challenges can sometimes enhance an actor's ability to channel complex emotions into a performance. George C. Scott initially refused to film the opening scene. George C. Scott was initially reluctant to film the movie's iconic opening scene in front of the massive American flag. He feared that such a dramatic introduction would overshadow the rest of his performance and possibly set the wrong tone for the character. Director Franklin J. Schaffner had to persuade Scott that the scene was essential to establish Patton's bold, commanding presence. Scott eventually agreed, and the speech went on to become one of the most memorable openings in film history, perfectly capturing Patton's larger-than-life persona. Patton was filmed across 6 countries. To recreate the battlefields of World War II with authentic scale and detail, Patton was filmed at 71 locations spanning 6 countries: Spain, Morocco, Greece, England, the United States, and Algeria. Spain played a particularly crucial role, with the support of Franco's army providing soldiers, artillery, and equipment for the large-scale battle scenes. Filming across multiple countries presented immense logistical challenges, from transporting troops and vehicles to coordinating permits and local support. Scott criticized his own performance.
Well, I can assure you, sir, because of my intimate relations with the Almighty, if you write a good prayer, we'll have good weather. I expect that prayer within an hour.
Even after winning an Academy Award for his powerful portrayal of General Patton, George C. Scott was surprisingly critical of himself. He later admitted that he hadn't truly captured the spiritual and philosophical depth of the real Patton, the inner mysticism and contradictions that defined the man behind the medals. This humility revealed a deeper truth about Scott as an artist, that even the most celebrated performances can leave the actor feeling unsatisfied, always chasing a more complete truth on screen. Several cast and crew members had real military experience. One reason Patton feels so authentic is that many of the people behind the film had actual military backgrounds. George C. Scott served in the U.S. Marine Corps, director Franklin J. Schaffner served in the Navy during World War II, and cinematographer Fred Konekamp also had military experience. Their first-hand knowledge of military life informed the film's attention to detail, from the way soldiers carried themselves to the way battles were staged and executed. This experience helped the cast and crew create a sense of realism that few war films of the era could match. It wasn't just about costumes or props, it was about capturing the mindset, discipline, and intensity of soldiers in the field, giving Patton a credibility that resonates even decades later. The chicken accident. One of the most shocking and strangely memorable moments in Patton was the scene where a military convoy rolls through a small village, accidentally running over a few stray chickens. What many viewers assume was staged for dramatic effect was actually a real accident that occurred during filming in Spain. Rather than reshooting the scene, director Franklin J. Schaffner decided to keep it, recognizing that it added an unexpected layer of realism. This small, chaotic moment perfectly reflected the unpredictable and often cruel nature of war, emphasizing that losses don't only affect soldiers but can touch everything caught in the conflict. President Nixon was obsessed with Patton.
Whether or not their president is a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
President Richard Nixon had a remarkable fascination with Patton, reportedly watching the film more than 10 times while in the White House. He even required his national security advisor, Henry Kissinger, to watch it alongside him. Nixon admired Patton's decisiveness, courage, and relentless drive, qualities he saw as exemplary leadership traits. The portrayal of Patton as a strong, fearless general resonated deeply with him during the turbulent years of the Vietnam War. Nixon reportedly drew inspiration from Patton's philosophy when making strategic decisions, particularly regarding the Vietnamization policy, using the general's boldness as a model for his own command. This unusual obsession underscores the enduring influence of Patton's persona, both on screen and in real-life leadership. Patton's real voice was very different from the film.
You who have not seen it do not know what hell looks like from the top. That's what Germany looks like.
In real life, General George S. Patton's voice was high-pitched, shrill, and sometimes harsh, often sounding more like an angry schoolteacher than the commanding military figure audiences see on screen. Many soldiers under his command initially found it off-putting or even unsettling. For the film, George C. Scott chose to give Patton a deep, powerful, and authoritative voice, enhancing the general's larger-than-life persona and making him instantly commanding on screen. While this choice sacrificed some historical accuracy, it created a cinematic version of Patton that perfectly captured his boldness, charisma, and the sense of awe he inspired, helping audiences immediately connect with the legendary figure. George C. Scott wanted to make an unofficial Patton sequel. After the success of Patton, George C. Scott briefly explored the idea of continuing the story of the general's life with an unofficial sequel. While it never came to fruition, Scott considered exploring Patton's post-war struggles and his controversial final days, offering a deeper look at the general's mindset after the guns of World War II fell silent. Scott's interest in a sequel highlights just how deeply he connected with the character and the historical figure he portrayed. It also reflects the lasting impact of Patton, both for audiences and for Scott himself, that the actor would even contemplate extending the story beyond the original film. This what could have been remains a fascinating footnote in the legacy of one of cinema's most iconic performances. Patton was a massive critical and commercial success. Patton was not only a cinematic achievement, but also a box office powerhouse. The film grossed over $60 million against a modest budget of $12 million, proving that audiences were captivated by both the story and George C. Scott's commanding performance. Critically, the film was equally triumphant, winning 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Director for Franklin J. Schaffner, and Best Original Screenplay. This combination of financial success and critical acclaim cemented Patton as one of the most influential war films ever made. made. The broadcast version kept most profanity. When Patton first aired on ABC in 1972, nearly all of the film's profanity was left untouched, something almost unheard of for network television at the time. Only 2 lines were removed, and surprisingly, one of them didn't even contain any profanity. The first line is one where Patton curses about the goddamn Third Army, and another line that didn't even contain profanity, it mentioned fornicating in a metaphorical way. This decision preserved the raw authenticity of George S. Patton's fiery personality and gave viewers a more genuine portrayal of the controversial general. The gamble paid off. Patton scored record-breaking TV ratings, proving that audiences preferred realism over censorship. The opening scene was Coppola's idea. The iconic opening scene of Patton, featuring the general delivering his powerful speech in front of a giant American flag, was the brainchild of Francis Ford Coppola, credited at the time as Francis Ford Coppa. Even though Coppola was later fired from the project, much of his script, including this unforgettable moment, remained intact. This scene didn't just open the film, it defined its tone, establishing Patton as a commanding figure and immediately immersing the audience in his complex character. Coppola's vision helped turn the film into a cinematic masterpiece, proving that bold ideas can leave a lasting impact even when the creator is no longer involved. Share with us in the comments which one of these facts surprised you the most. And if you enjoyed this video, like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss more deep dives into classic films.